enacting the Title IX, the latest reports I found made for some interesting reading. There's 4,154 female head coaches of women's teams, and that's the highest ever representation of women as coaches. It's an increase of 180 since 2012. But in 1972, when the title was enacted, more than 90% of women's teams were coached by females. So it seems like it's a little bit of, they don't really make sense, do they? But what it does show is that there's more on offer for women, but there's lots of space for women to take up. So this is just the kind of conversation that we need to encourage more women to take up the space in coaching. And that may be in a US context, but it's certainly the same here in South Africa. And it's time now to introduce our two coaches because they will be able to help us better understand this landscape. Dorette Badenhorst is the coach of the SPAR Proteas, that's our national women's netball team, and Desiree Ellis, she is a two-time CAF Women's Coach of the Year. She's the current coach of Banyana Banyana, our national women's football team. Good morning, good afternoon to the both of you.
Good afternoon, Valen, and to the viewers as well.
Dorette, I'm going to start with you. What are some of the challenges of being a head coach of a national team?
I try not to see a lot of challenges, but I rather see it as stepping stones just to become better. But yeah, we do have a lot of challenges as coaches. We don't have a lot of opportunities out there to work with our players, communication, planning, working with a lot of different people to get something done. And players not always available, a huge problem. They still in a job. They do have their full-time jobs and not always available for national duty. So it's a few challenges out there that we can take out. But like I said, we try to see it more than stepping stones to go forward.
Des, if you can just weigh in from a footballing perspective, what are some of the challenges that you now encounter as the head coach of the women's team?
Look, during COVID, it's been a bit difficult, especially last year when there was no football. But as Dorette says, you have to find solutions for those, which we did. We sent out a training program every single day since the beginning of lockdown. Obviously, the same, sometimes we get a date and it's not a FIFA date and players are not available. Our last camp, we only had 3 international players. The others were not available due to COVID quarantine protocols in the countries where they were playing in. But you've got to find a solution for that, and we found a solution by making the core group bigger. And then other small little challenges with, trying to get the right opposition, especially during this time. We know South Africa is a high-risk country, and trying to get into tournaments and competitions has been very difficult because of the high-risk country that we are in. And we seriously just have to make, find solutions for that. And we did that in March when we had a camp. But now we're looking at getting stronger opposition and small little challenges. But those are solvable.
Players not being available and playing regularly, those are certain things that are often out of your control. So when I started off the webinar, I said that coaches can only control the controllables, like anybody that's involved in that space, and making sure that you manage it. But as a head coach, you're so much more responsible for certain things that I think other people wouldn't think are in your control, but you do have to control them. Dorette, as a head coach, do you find yourself doing so much more than just coaching?
Sometimes I wish I can just coach, but 90% of the time it's definitely not coaching. So it's important that you're planning, the working with the players, all different personalities, important to give them opportunity to learn and know each other. You need to go on court, and it's not always just the physical part and training, but it's the psychology. knowing each other and the different personalities. And, they also go through a lot of difficulty. Like some of my international players came back and COVID had a huge influence on them emotionally. And they said, but coach, I can't play. I'm emotionally drained. And things like that, people don't understand always. Why don't you play your best players? Why don't you keep on selecting them? But sometimes they also drained emotionally because they still people and they still have their challenges at home. It's not only what's happening on field, but also a lot of things happening off in the field. And like we said, we're not professional, so we still have our different jobs, and they still have to look after. Some do have kids, some do have husbands, and all that type of challenges that you really need to look at and make sure that you manage those players.
So it's not only player management, it's personality management too.
Definitely. I just realized when I started with taking over from Plum that there's so many personalities in a team, and we're only 7 on court and 12 in the team, but the different personalities, and everyone needs to connect. And I always say that we as women, we're not really easy people, and women can be a little bit difficult when it comes to their needs and what they want and how they want to do it. So yeah, everyone, some is like really perfectionists. You can't change 1 minute. If you said the team talk will be 15:15 and you try to do it 2 minutes earlier, then you're definitely in trouble, and they totally out of their norm. And little things like that. Some wants the feedback immediately, some don't want feedback immediately, but later. Some just different in everything they're doing, not only on court but off court as well.
Dorette has highlighted how much of a psychologist you have to be as a head coach. And that's just one of the roles, because you also have to consider so many other things, don't you? Like logistics and, when there's not people to do certain things within your management structure, you've got to pick up the slack.
Look, I'm a bit fortunate. I have a manager that looks after the logistics, that looks after the planning, and we practically on the phone 24/7, preparing the planning and everything else. And then obviously with the training, you then get together with the fitness trainers. So I'm a bit fortunate that I have a sort of a management team, technical team that I liaise with at all times. But yes, there are challenges, especially we're not professional either. So we try and send out a training program beforehand to make sure that everybody that comes to camp is on a certain level. And I've been fortunate that I was an assistant coach, and then I was an acting coach and the head coach. So I sort of knew a lot of the players. I already interacted with a lot of them. And we have a sort of a senior group, and we also have a captain's group. So we can sit and talk to them all the time. But I think COVID has been a huge impact, especially in South Africa with players. We're not sure when we were going to start, but we tried to stay in contact. We divided the group into 3. I took a group, the more senior players, obviously, and the overseas base, including the staff. But not forgetting the staff also went through a tough time during COVID. The assistant coach, Tina Sonke, took a group, and Shalene Boyson, who was the analyst, who's now the head coach of South Sudan, took a group, and we tried to give personal interaction to the players, and that was very, very welcoming. And then we'd also do Zoom for those players that were able to go on Zoom, and at least once or twice a month, I would try and get into contact with everyone, remembering that we divided the group, and that was really, really welcoming, especially for the players that were abroad, just to know that, they were in our thoughts, and we were thinking of them and staying in contact. And that really, really helped. Even now, we're still in contact with players. I have regular chats with players abroad. I also speak to the local players. I speak to coaches. So we try to stay in contact to make sure that everybody stays connected, because it's not just about the head coach, but it's about the whole group. The staff were also going through some challenges, and just, picking up the phone. And sometimes the player would pick up the phone and would ask me, how am I doing? So we tried to stay connected, and that really, really helped us in sending out the training program to make sure that when football restarted, that we were not too far behind.
Speaking about staying connected with your players, both you and Dorette have sit in very fortunate places because you've got amazing talent in your respective codes that are currently playing abroad. In netball, you've got Carla Pretorius, you've got Lenise Borchita, you've got Ina Marie Fenter, all playing abroad. And that's just a couple of names. On the footballing front, you've got Rhoda Mulauti. I actually read something interesting this morning that she parted ways with her Belarusian women's Premier League side, Dynamo, but she's playing abroad. Tembi Khatlana, Linda Motlalo. So there's a number of these players that are overseas and then they come back, and then that wealth of experience is put back into the national teams for big international competitions. So I'm going to start with you, Dorette. How important is it to look after these players, these international players that act as role models to get more youngsters inspired to continue with the sport?
Yeah, the international players are really, for me, very important. Some people feel that they most of the year not in the country, but for our international series, they're always available. Carla came back with an injury, but I involved her again because the knowledge that she can give back to the players. We also do have a leadership group in our group, and I just decided to keep her in the group because she couldn't play, but the value she's got next to the court, helping the youngsters, it's just great having those players and getting feedback back from what's working for them on that side of the world. It's difficult because you want your players with you, you want to train with them, you go into competitions without seeing them, and then they're there. But I see it as really positive because what they bring back to the rest of the team is really great. And not only to the players, but even as a coach, I've learned a lot from them, like the on-court technology, because they're professional in Australia, so they will have like big screens, analysis, doing the analysis is doing, they're doing it next to the court, and immediately they can go quickly and watch. And we brought things in like that with our training and training camps. And I think it's really important that you learn from each other, take what that's good for you, leave the other stuff, because we don't want to play like Australia or like England, but you can learn from other sporting coaches, you can learn from other coaches in the same sporting code. So it's for me important to have a good relationship with their coaches, with their analysts. We get all the footage of all the games. It's only available for me and Dumi because they're still playing against each other in Australia, and the same in England. But we get the feedback. We can watch the players. We can give them feedback on what is important and what not. And I think it's really important to communicate with those coaches and players.
Des, I see you nodding your head. This is certainly something that you get to enjoy too, learning best practice from other leagues where your top international players are applying their trade.
No, most definitely. The difficult part is some of the countries that the players are in, the coaches don't speak English. So that's a bit difficult. But I get to interact with players. I get to watch the games. I get links from the players. I give feedback to players, etc. Because I think it's important. Those are the ones that we saw the difference with Tembi and Noko coming back now for the Zambia game. Noko giving instructions and coming to listen and coming to the bench and saying, I'll take over their coach. So that is the experience that they've gained. Tembi sitting with a young player, after supper and trying to, motivate her and give her some tips, in other words. So that is what we do. And we sort of almost have a mentor program where we try to team up a younger player or a newer player with a more senior player in the group, just so they can listen and learn and try and put them in that group. So I agree, the technology, I think we were fortunate that we had one of the best, Shalene Boyson, an analyst. She already did what Dorette was saying, live, analysis with the under-17s in the dressing room. Immediately had that already. We now have to get someone new because she's since moved on to South Sudan, and we wish her well. But you've got to have expertise with you. And that is what has made us really successful, having all that expertise around us, but also getting the input from the more senior players. We would call them in and, they would sit down and we'd get feedback from them, and we'd involve them in a lot of the decisions going forward. And them coming back from their clubs, obviously things are different, and they'll come back and say, this is how we do that. But then we've got to look at also, South Africa. South Africa is different. How we interpret what they do and if it will work for us. And sometimes it doesn't work because we have a lot of personalities. We come from different cultures and different backgrounds, and you have to take cognizance of that and make sure that you can get everybody working together.
As a head coach, you are not only managing players and personalities, but you also are banking on the fact that you're getting a finished product, because your time with those players is often limited, unless it's if you're going to a major international tournament where you can ask for a camp that is over a week or up to 2 weeks or maybe even a little bit longer. But otherwise, you are getting a finished product and you're having to manage those players. So, Dorette, how much conversation is going on with your players at club level? And with those coaches at club level, and just that having that relationship to ensure that when the players do come to the national setup, that you're ready to get the best out of them.
Yeah, well, and I want to say that I think this was one of the huge problems in our country when it comes to netball, because most coaches, it's the same when you get feedback from the international players. Some coaches feel threatened by strong personalities and immediately don't want to listen. And this is the same between us as coaches. We sometimes feel threatened and you actually want that position, so they don't want to talk to you. And just looking at New Zealand again, the national coach sat behind all the different teams playing in their national league and gave feedback to coaches. And I actually said that to a lot of coaches, that we need to talk more. I want to help them. It's not I want to help them, this coach to beat the other coach. It's helping the players. So giving feedback, it's not that I like a certain team and I want a certain team to win during the TNL, but it's giving feedback to players what we need at the international level, because the international level is different from our local and provincial and national leagues, because there's a huge difference in the pressure that's on court. For instance, players get used to playing in certain combinations. As soon as you change the combination, they don't perform, and people don't understand why we don't select those players. But when they play trials, those type of things comes through. And I had Jenny van Dijk now with my in my camp, and I invited it to my trials, and she actually said to me, yes, Dor, I can't believe this is what's happening. And I think it's so important that we as coaches talk and engage with the other coaches and give them feedback. Not that you think you're better than them, but I think we can help to help players at the end of the day. And sometimes they also need support. Some coaches are open for this. There's some coaches out there that will phone me at a regular basis. I will speak to them. I will help them, give advice. But some coaches are a little bit reluctant. They don't like getting feedback, don't like getting help. But I think we need to think about the players, because this is not about us. For me, coaching is not about us as coaches. It's about those players and giving them more feedback, more to work on. That's the most important thing for me as a coach. And sometimes we need to put ourselves just that one step back and look, what is our real goal? And that is to produce top players. And what can we give to these coaches to work with these players to get them at the next level?
Yeah, and also have more of a national agenda in mind when it is that you are sharing ideas and you're sharing feedback, because that's something that's so important. Des, the South African National Women's Football League, the SAFA National Women's Football League, that got off. It's the second season that's now underway. You guys are just in round 2, going into round 2 now. What kind of conversations do you have with the coaches in the leagues in South Africa when it comes to football, so that when you do get your players, they are at the level that you need them to be to represent South Africa?
Look, Valen, I regularly chat to coaches, especially that has from our national team players on a regular basis. When we send out programs, we don't only send it to the players, but we also send it to the coaches. But we recently had, with all the National League coaches, we had a technical engagement, a Zoom, where we interacted with them and, you know, asked them to help us with certain challenges, because as you rightfully say, we get the players for 7 days or so, sometimes less. They have the players every day, and certain challenges that we face. And we're looking at doing that with the SASA League as well, because at the end of the day, they prepare the players for us. We cannot do anything without them. Their input and their contribution has been immense so far, but we need more. So we've done that technical engagement, and I go around and go to matches, and after the matches, I will interact with the coaches about certain things, because I make it a plan to try to go to every single home match if I can, to interact with the coaches. And I think it's important also coaches asking when the camps are over, what can they do to help their player, etc. And then we sit and we chat. So that consistent interaction is important, because they are a huge contribution to our success because of their input. Also them working with the players, as you say, we need to have the finished product, especially at senior national team level. And they play a huge, huge role. So we will consistently and continuously interact, and we try and make more technical engagements with the coaches. So going forward, so that it's not just a once-off, but that it's continuous in how they can help us. So when the players come to camp and we have a look and see how the players has improved, we also got to say thank you to them. Thank you to them, because at the end of the day, the most important thing, as Dorette said, it's the players. You cannot do without them. You know, they're key. They're the key role players in all of this. So we got to make sure that the environment, that everything is suited for them to perform.
Yeah, Mel was saying it's all about the players, and it's about keeping them front and center, making sure that they've got the environment that is conducive to get the best performance from them. So I suppose naturally from that, as national head coaches and you receiving a finished product, from a netballing perspective as well as from a footballing perspective, what are the key skill sets that you are looking for in your respective sports that you would like your player or a potential future national player to actually come to the national team with? Dorette, you can go ahead.
Oh, for me, it's a positive attitude, because I can work on the skills. As soon as you do have that positive attitude to really work hard and commit into what we want to do and want to achieve, and is coachable. Those two things, attitude and coachable players, is like makes my job as a coach much easier. I can still help them with attacking skills and shooting skills and defensive skills, but if they don't have the right attitude coming into this training camps, and another thing that I'm struggling is the intensity. People are training. Intensity is a huge problem, because players come from their own clubs and they may be training for 2-3 hours a day, but the intensity is so low that when they come to us and you only train for an hour and a half, but high intensity, they can't cope. And sometimes that habit of low intensity training but long hours takes its toll on players, because they just can't adapt that soon. But yes, for me, main thing, coachable players and a positive attitude.
Yeah, and it seems like it's a soft skill, doesn't it? That an attitude is, it's just something you have or not, but it's actually a habit. It's something that you can train. Being intentional about your training is certainly something that you can train, and you can make it a habit so that you are continually training with a certain amount of intensity. Des, I'm going to pose the same question to you, that basic skill set that you would like your players to arrive at camp with.
I think ours is a bit more complicated than netball. Yeah. We have 11 players on the field, and we look for certain criteria in each and every position. There's certain criteria, but the one that stands out is a team player. As Dorette said, positive attitude, a team player. And one other thing that stands out is also the intensity. Sometimes we identify a player, the player comes to camp, but the intensity is just so much higher than the players used to. And from being a player with a good first touch, with a good pass, that's not happening anymore, because the intensity is so much higher. So the intensity in our league matches has got to improve, because when we play international football, when a new player comes in, for example, we will call the player in and ask, what was your thought when you got the call up. And it's interesting to listen to some players on what they say, and then what are the expectations, and then you call them in after the first camp. The first thing they say is the intensity is so much higher than what we used to. And that's why we urge the intensity to be much higher in the league matches as well. And that is the reason why we send out training programs, because we know some clubs don't have the resources to train the whole week. And we would just want to up that by sending out the training programs, but definitely a positive attitude, definitely a team player. That's very, very important, because we can't do without each other, whether you're on the pitch or off the pitch. It's not an I or a me, it's an us. And if you come with that positive attitude, it rubs off on the other player. You come with that encouragement attitude, it rubs off on the other player. And that for me is also very key.
What is the key then to increasing the intensity? Because when you say that, I mean, for both of the sporting codes, it is you would prefer that players came with just being in the habit of playing with more intensity. Is it because there's a lack of competitiveness at a regional, at a club level?
I don't think, yes, it can be part of it, but I just think that as coaches, I'm a basic coach. For me, it's the basic skills are really important, and starting with movement skills. And as soon as you practice your movement skills in agility exercises, that is where intensity starts. So some coaches, I feel sometimes they focus on fitness in the sense of real fitness. They have to run around this stadium and that stadium. But when you play a game, it's between those lines, and speed is really important for us. So I'm not saying that endurance isn't important, but I think we train the wrong way when it comes to certain skills, because as soon as you bring the ball in and you do agility exercise and you need to work with speed, the players, they're too tired because they will run long distances, but they never do speed endurance or speed itself. And that's a wrong training, and we include agility with the ball, all our movement skills with balls, and that way we actually practice, and that's fitness. It's actually more court-related fitness. It sometimes feels to me that people are running and running, especially at school level coaches. The kids are playing 10 minutes aside, but they do fitness as if they're going to run their comrades. And it's totally the wrong way of training, because we short, sharp movements. The football field is quite big, but we don't have that big surface. So we really do a lot of change of direction in a very small space. You only play a third or 2/3, and you need to really work with speed in that 20 meters max. And I think the way we train is wrong, and that is why we don't work at a high intensity.
Des, from a footballing perspective?
I think you have fitness and you have football fitness. And correct what Dorette said, we do a lot of our training with the ball. Very little of our training is done without the ball. Maybe the first part of the warm-up, yes. And when we do our EPEs, which is our explosive preparation exercises, some of that is done without the ball, but also with the ball, because you can include finishing in that. So football fitness is different from fitness. And that for us is the same thing. It's the most key thing, but also it's not just that. So, as I said, some clubs train twice a week. For an international player, that is not enough. Some club trains four times a week, but sometimes the quality of training is not what you're looking for. Sometimes there's more quantity, but they're preparing for a league match. So their training is completely different to our training. And that is the reason why we send out the training programs when we know there's a camp coming and we've included 30 players and we're going to select a group of 24, etc. We will send out a training program 2 to 3 weeks before the camp starts, so that we make sure that everybody comes in at the same level, especially for someone that we've just identified. We want to give that individual an equal opportunity to be at the same level when they come to camp. Otherwise, we're just selecting for the sake of selecting. But as she says, football fitness is different to normal fitness. And I think that is the huge difference.
So for our viewers, thanks to those that have already sent comments, please do get involved in the show. Maybe there's a question that you'd like to pose. Perhaps there's an experience that you'd like to share with us on Facebook. Oh, and Tambi Ravele, that is our chairperson at SWAFS. So she says, is the local league contributing in preparation for the national teams? So that comment coming through on Facebook. You're also welcome to get involved on Twitter. It's at SA_WASF. So Des, you can go ahead. You can answer that question that Mantembi posed to us about the national leagues playing their role.
I think the National League, we were always looking forward to the second edition. The first edition, especially after the first couple of weeks, we were very excited. But then the intensity dropped, and then you could say that you have a top half and a bottom half. But when I looked at the last couple of games, the intensity has definitely improved. The all-round play of players has also improved. And you must remember that we've got a National League now, but we had a SASA League before. And 90% of the players, or actually all the players that are currently playing in the National League, comes from the SASA League. You know, like I say, it's the training that they do and the intensity of the level. But if they are not at that intensity, we can help them get to that intensity. We are very particular when we select players in different positions. We have a selection criteria, which we've already gone out and indicated to the National League coaches, and we'll do likewise with the SASA League coaches, of exactly what it is that we are looking for. But it has helped. We get the players from there. Some players come in a very high physical condition, and it shows that those are the ones that really raise their hands. Those are the ones, some of them have been in the national team before, so they obviously know what to expect. So they come in, and the newer ones that have come in have realized that they've also got to step up. And so far, so good this year, considering that we've been inactive for 8 months. So we were very happy with where we were at when we had these last training matches and training camps. But they've been very helpful, the coaches, in giving us the quality that we want.
So just for our viewers, because I know our coaches they're very humble. They're very competitive as coaches, and with their national teams, their respective national teams, but they're also very humble. So Banyana were last in action in 2 international friendlies. They beat Zambia as well as Botswana. The Botswana results, I think, gave South Africa a lot of satisfaction, because our neighbours actually dumped us out of the Olympic qualification tournament. So Banyana are now looking ahead to qualifying for the next FIFA Women's World Cup. And it's also with a World Cup in mind that our Spal Proteas are also preparing. They recently played in a Tri-Nations, and they were unbeaten throughout, and they were without a number of their top players. So that's just to give our viewers a little bit of a perspective where our national teams are currently at when it comes to football and with netball. So Dorette, how does, as Mantembi asked us, how do the local leagues contribute to preparing players for the national team?
Yeah, the local leagues, the competition, we need competition. On our level, we don't play a lot of games. So game time is crucial for us, and that gives more players opportunity to play that hour game, get time on court, because you can train, but you need competition. So for me, it's really important. Just sometimes the overtraining of some players, because same players are playing for the varsity, playing in Varsity Cup, playing USA, playing Tshwane, playing, say, for instance, provincial and in their TNL leagues in their regions. So sometimes it's just the goals of us as coaches that we need to look at, because we don't want to overtrain players and they keep on playing this all the competitions, and we don't really give a lot of players opportunity. We need to give more players opportunity. There's more competitions coming for netball, and we really need to see that we involve more players and not the same players coming through the whole time. And then for me, also important the goals for the coaches, because sometimes they're in a pre-season, but I'm going into competition and they want to follow their club program on a pre-season, but I need my players to perform at an international level, and just to engage in that way that we do have different goals going into your preparation for tournaments, and some players will actually be tired going into the international competition series, and others won't have enough game time throughout the league. So yeah, that's sometimes a challenge for me as a coach, because you really need to work with the other coaches when it comes to managing the players, to give them enough game time, because we really need competition. But some players are coming into the international series and they tired because they overplayed, and others never got opportunity. They will maybe play a minute here, 2 minutes there, because they're on the bench the whole time. So those type of things, I think, is very important that we manage it, because we can get much more out of the leagues. And I still think that in netball in South Africa, we need to focus a little bit more on our club level participation, because there's a lot of players out there that we do have our TNL and our national leagues, but I think our club system, we can actually do much better. A lot of clubs that's not existing anymore, and we really need to work hard on getting back a club champs and things like that, because that is where you get your best players from, is from the club level, and they can play close to home and things like that. They don't always have the money to go to a national champs, but they can play there at home, and that's where we as national coaches can see them and see talent. And sometimes talent get lost because of no competition in their regions.
Yeah. It just highlights once again how important communication and discussion and sharing of ideas within your sports ecosystem actually is. I came across this term a couple of years ago, this sports ecosystem, and really that's what it's about, because everybody has a certain bit to contribute. The health of the entire ecosystem is reliant on so many different factors. It's not just about one person or one player. It's a number of different factors that are all coming together to create something that is successful. Des, I would like to know how you stay on top of the latest coaching trends, because, you know, football for women is continually changing, and there are new ideas, and there are people on a global perspective that are doing some amazing different things. How do you stay on top of the latest coaching trends?
Valen, I was fortunate to be part of a FIFA coaching mentorship program. So I was in a group with Vera Pauw, Jill Ellis, Corinne from from France. I was also with Serena Wichmann. So we stay in contact all the time, and we sort of share ideas. But there's always courses happening. So I'm currently doing a football conditioning course just to upskill myself a little bit, some more. And we have to continuously, upskill ourselves because the game evolves, the game gets quicker, and things change. And in that way, I'm also part of a coaches group where we consistently talk about the different trends, and stuff is thrown in there, and we discuss it. I'm also in contact with our technical director, Coach Franz, on a regular basis, interacting not just about the national team, but about the league as well. And obviously the group of coaches that we work with, I think interacting with them as well. But trying to upskill yourself all the time, because as I said, it evolves so quickly, gets better so quickly. And obviously social media, social media is a platform where there's always an opportunity to be part of different webinars, which I was part of a lot over the last year. And it's become a really learning tool. And through each and every webinar, there is something that you are learning. The Belgium had one, and you can see why they are top of a top nation in the world, because of how they've restructured, how the Germans have restructured, etc. Also part of the COSAFA La Liga Masterclass at the moment, bringing in the La Liga coaches. So I've already been part of 2 of those webinars, been part of a CAF Women's Football Strategy webinar. So growing and learning all the time, because, we have to evolve as the game evolves as well.
Incredible to hear, somebody with the amount of success that you've enjoyed, just how important continual learning actually is. Dorette, is there maybe a specific, coaching trend that you've come across that has been incredibly helpful, that was very different to maybe what was a traditional way of doing things on the netball front?
Yeah, from my side, and this is to coaches out there. I started at a very young age coaching, and I got a lot of opportunities through Netball South Africa to work with different coaches like Jill McIntosh, with Lynn Gunson, with Plum, Norma Plummer, and all those people. But what is really important is that you need to stay in it, and things change. How we coached 10 years ago, 5 years ago is different, and you as a coach needs to keep on learning. And yes, we attend a lot of webinars, we're doing a lot of masterclasses, and just by coaching day in, day out for 4 or 5 hours a day, you need to stay up there, because if you're coaching, you can't go out there with the same plan every day. So you need to be prepared as a coach, and that is what coaching is, why coaching is sometimes difficult for people out there, because it's a lot of planning, a lot of time management, a lot of the things that you need to give to be prepared, because it's easy to go out there and just coach the same way, but you need to engage with other sporting coaches. You need to learn from other sporting coaches. I love to make sure that I talk to other sporting coaches to see how do they do certain things, and change the way I think about certain things, and to just keep on learning every day. Sometimes I'm learning from my players, so it's just a constant learning the whole time, going out there, make sure that you prepared, because through preparation, you need to make sure you go on internet, you need to go to attend different webinars. Yes, COVID changed a lot, and we did a lot of masterclasses and webinars and things like that. But for me, also doing analysis, it's so important to watch different games, see what's working, what's not working, and become a better coach through that. So it's important that I work close to my analyst, sorry, with my analyst, and we have a really great working relationship, because it's important that she keeps me updated with certain stuff. I need to work through it and be prepared for what's coming and what's the new things that's happening out there.
You said you like to learn from other sports. I think Des has got a training camp coming up, and she wouldn't mind to share a couple of the extra footballs that they've got.
Is that introduction, Des?
I think I should come to her training camp as well.
Yes, exactly. It's that learning from different. There's a great book by David Epstein. It's called Range, and it's about the fact that often the skills that you need and that players need, you develop it and you see it just by doing different sports. They did a case study of Roger Federer to say that because his mom and dad said that he can't focus on tennis until he's 12 and he had to do other sports, that actually made him a better tennis player, because it gave him the ability to learn from those other sports and to develop his skills.
You're right, Valen. Sorry, can I come in there? You're right.
Yeah,
when I was young, I did ballet. I was even on blocks. I did ballet. Okay. I played netball. I played hockey. I did athletics. I wouldn't be able to play netball now. There's just so many rule changes since I played netball. But you're right, it does help going forward. And everybody thought I was going to be a ballerina, and I ended up being a football player.
So I actually want to, I'm glad you took us there and gave us a little bit of your own personal background, because I want to speak a little bit more about yourself as a coach. So many women speak about this imposter syndrome in different sectors that they're in. And I'd like to know, as a woman, as a coach that needs to be super confident all the time in your decisions, in your game plans, how do you personally deal with your own misgivings, or maybe your own ideas and the things that you as a person have to deal with in being a coach, and how do you actually maintain getting the best from yourself, because you also have to deal with knocks to your confidence, criticism, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, from my side, I do have a family that's really supporting me, and my parents, I'm lucky to have both my parents still supporting me. My dad, he thinks that he's actually the coach, and I can learn more from you. But I think it's very important that you do have your family around you, because sometimes when I came back from Vitality in England, I said to my mom and dad, I think it's only you that still loves me. But it's difficult out there, because we're in a country that everyone wants to win, and they want the best. And they want to see their players they selected, not the ones we selected. And I stay away from Facebook. I stay away from all those negative stuff. I like to keep myself busy by developing other coaches, and just go on court coaching that 7-year-old and 8-year-old. That's a way for me to just get away from all the stress and the negativity that sometimes comes with this. But yes, I also think that you need to sometimes fake it, what's inside and what's happening inside my body. I can't always explain to someone, but it seems that I'm very calm and collected, but inside you're really not always fine. But I do have a friend that I can also talk to, and at the end of the day, you need that friend that's that criticize you in a positive way, that will tell you what you did is not good, you need to change this and that, and that maybe you will be angry for 2 days, and then you just think, oh, she's actually right, I need to change this. So you need that type of people in your life. But it's very important. Just sometimes I will just go and play squash and things like that to just get my head right again, because people can be very negative out there, and no matter what you try and do, and the time you're putting into this, it's you're never going to keep everyone happy. So for me, it's a mindset. I'm definitely not going to kill myself about that, but I still think that coaches need more support. I think really sometimes, I think I spoke to Rudolf Strauly once, and he said to me, people don't do enough for coaches, because mentally they also suffering, and we also as coaches need help to just get coping methods, how to cope with certain things that's happening out there. Avoiding Facebook is definitely one of my things that I like to do, because a lot of people can be really negative, but I still have a lot of people out there that's supporting me, and I think it's important that you focus on the positive people that surrounds you, and not always listen to the negative people.
Des, I know you and I have spoken at length about this, and I know your experience when you got back from France and having to deal with the amount of criticism that you had to endure, and your family are just as important, having that good support network.
No, most definitely. Even though my family doesn't live in Johannesburg with me, I take time out to go and visit my family and just unwind and, just lie in the bed and watch TV, etc. But you're right. Just before the World Cup, my assistant coach, Tina Sonke, actually said to me, Coach, go off social media. And it's the best thing I could have done was to go off, because we are a results-driven country. And as Dorette said, no matter what you do, if you beat a team 2-0, they say, yeah, it's a weak team. If you beat that team 10-0, they say, yes, you should have beaten that team 10-0. We can only play what's in front of us, and we would like to play stronger opposition. On the other hand, it's how you take the criticism. Sometimes it's unwarranted, but, that's the nature of the game. When you get into the national team, there's already so much pressure. And what I do to unwind sometimes, I switch off my phone. I just lie in my bed and I binge, I read, I watch TV, I watch a movie. So I call it me time. And the people that are close to me obviously know how to get hold of me if my phones are switched off. But I think that's the most important thing. I'm fortunate, that I have a group of people around me who I trust. I have a group of people who has the same vision as me, and I can say we watch each other's backs, and we support each other, and we trust the process. Sometimes people are not happy, as Dorette says. Everybody, if you give all this million people, you give them a piece of paper to select a squad, there's no 2 people that will have the same squad. So imagine how difficult it is for us as coaches, when we are selecting. But we trust the process. That's the most important thing, that we trust the process. the end goal is the most important thing for us, and we trust the process along the way. And that is the most important thing, to trust that process and get the end goal. And still, some people are not going to be happy, so we just have to believe in what we believe in, and everything we make, every decision we make, it's football related. Every decision we make is for the team. Every decision, selection we make is for the team. Sometimes when you're selecting, you put your scenario on and you look around, and maybe you don't have enough cover at centre back, so you're going to have to maybe bring someone else in and maybe sacrifice a player, but you've got to cover all your baskets. And family for me is the most important thing, but then again, the football team is the family as well, away from home. So it's important that we stay connected. It's important that we look out for each other, and it's important that we care, because you cannot be a coach and not care. I've never heard of a coach that is a coach and doesn't care.
Yeah. Selection is something that you've mentioned, Dorette, is something that you've mentioned, but it can be not only a pressurized environment, but it can also bring a lot of emotion. How do you maintain a happy environment within a team?
Yeah, I think honesty, and like they said, trust. I trust my management team with me, and they there for me. They're always supporting me. But I think when it comes to selection, it's all about being honest. I think if you can be, I always say to coaches out there, I want to sleep at night with my eyes closed. It's not about who I know or who I like or don't like. I want to win, and that's the way I'm selecting. I use a lot of stats, because stats don't lie. If people are telling me this girl is brilliant, and I will tell that she had 7 turnovers against her in 15 minutes. You can't keep that type of person in an international game. Then that is the type of stats that will help you on selection. But like I said, we do go into selection different ways. Feedback, very important, because players want to know why they're not selected. And if you as a coach can give them that reason why they're not selected, then you will get a player that can go back and work on certain things and come back and will be much happier than just sending players away. They don't know why they're not selected. They don't know what the circumstances is. And I think that is very important. Feedback and honesty. I spoke to Rassie at one stage, and they said with the feedback process, they give, say, for instance, a mark out of 5 for a player's attacking skills, and they will give themselves also a mark out of 5. And if it's the one gives, the player gives themselves 5 out of 5, and they will give them 3 out of 5. They need to discuss that. Why are you giving yourself 5 out of 5 for attacking skills, but I think you're still struggling with this and this on attack? So I think that type of communication between players is really important, because that will help you with the whole selection process and a happy player.
Yeah, maintaining a happy environment and maintaining honesty is certainly two key things that whenever I speak to successful teams, that's something that really does come out. Des, how do you maintain a happy environment before and after selection?
I think honesty is on top. You will speak to the player and be honest in your assessment. Sometimes it's not what the individual wants to hear, though, but you are honest in your assessment as well. And I think that is important. And obviously, as she says, sometimes someone would say, this player has just joined a top club. Why is she not in the national team? Stats are important. The player hasn't even started the last 3 games. The player has been on the bench. So if you are saying that the player goes to a club, but the player hasn't played the last 3 games, and then how do you select that player? When you are making a statement and you say, so-and-so has been a regular goal scorer, but if you go to the stat, you look, they've scored 2 goals in 10 matches. If you say they've scored 6 goals over their last 5 games, maybe 4 goals has been scored against one team, and in your other 5 matches, you didn't score. So we use that criteria as well. But we also look at what they have to offer the team, because sometimes you get players that play really well at their clubs, but can they raise that level? And some of them cannot raise that level. We've brought players in for the COSAFA Cup, and the COSAFA Cup is the first international tournament that you go to before you even go to the AFCON. And if players are not able to perform at that level, then surely they cannot perform higher. But we use all of those things. We also look at multifunctional players. You go to the COSAFA Cup, you can only select 20 players. So now you got to look at, yes, you got to look at specific positions, but you also got to look at somebody like Rafil Wejani, who's most probably played in every position except for goalkeeper. Linda's played across the midfield. You look at Leandra, who's played almost in every position as well. So you've got to look at multifunctional players as well. And then you get people talking about, yes, but this player is a winger. Lebogang Ramalepe came into the national team as a left winger. She's been our most consistent player at right fullback. So you have to look at all of those scenarios. And as I said, we will put it up, and we put up the different scenarios in the different formations that we can play, and make sure that all our bases are covered. But honesty is key, and the feedback, not only to the player, but we also speak to the coaches.
One of the hashtags for the webinar series is no to gender-based violence. And netball recently and women's football has had it in the past, and that is allegations of sexual harassment. I recall speaking to Fran Hilton Smith, and she said one of the big reasons why she encouraged and why she wanted to get people to coach women's football, to teach women how to coach women's football, is because it's something that she was exposed to from the very, very early days. This is something that's a reality in women's sport, and keeping our girls safe is certainly something that thankfully we're becoming more open to speaking about. Why is it so important that we get more women to coach women's teams if we are to have a healthy women's sporting future? Dorette?
Yeah, for me, this is a big problem in netball because we don't have enough women in the coaching. I think it's a lot of commitment being a coach, and it's a lot of time and money going into coaching. And you, as a woman, you do have your kids at home, you still need to feed them, and sometimes people don't want to commit to take a team. They will rather manage, or they will do the umpiring, and then the players land into the hands of the male coaches. And we need more women coaches out there. We really need them, because as a woman, you would rather speak to a lady about how you feel. You will feel much safer speaking to a woman coach than speaking to a male's coach. And it seems to me sometimes that players are afraid of the male coaches, and whatever they are saying, they will just do it, no matter how it's going to change them as a woman. And I think that is the big problem out there. And they've got this hand over the ladies and the young girls. And the girls are afraid of them, and they will do whatever they're saying because they want to play. And that is quite bad. We as women coaches, we won't we won't ask players to do something else than playing the game for us, and we will support them because we know the challenges of women, and we know what they're going through certain times of emotionally during a month, physically during the month, but they're afraid when it comes to male coaches, and that is why they will just jump when they say jump this high and run this far. And I think that is the big problem, but I still believe that there's not enough women coaches out there that commit and go out to make a difference in these ladies and girls' lives. And we don't have that. And I'm doing a lot of coach development, and I'm a PCD as well, and an NCD as well. And we develop coaches, and more male coaches are coming through, and we actually want the ladies out there.
Wow, okay.
I don't know why it is that they're not coming through the system. But this is a huge problem that we really need that ladies to come through as our top coaches, because from school level to club level, we really need the women to come through, because the males are taking over, and this will become a huge problem coaching the girls.
What's the current status in football, Des?
Look, not all men, abuse women. And we have a lot of male coaches, and a lot of them have done a fantastic job. I grew up being coached by male coaches. And the only time I was exposed to female coaches was in the national team, even though Shalene Boyson was my coach at club level for about 2 years or so. But I grew up, and not everyone, as I said, there are a lot of male coaches out there that does a lot of good work in women's football. So we have to, raise our hand and say, well done to them. They have the passion for the game. But you're right, there's not enough women coming through for women coaches. I think, if I speak under correction, but I think we have 3 female coaches out of 14 teams in the National League. I'm not wary to the amount of coaches in the SASA League, because we have nine regions with about 16 teams each. But we have to raise our hand and say thank you to the males that have coached women's football, that have played their part, that are contributing to women's football, because not everyone, abuses the players, etc. So in women's football, there's a lot more male coaches than female coaches, and a lot of them are doing really, really good work.
Would you like to see more female women's football coaches or female football coaches?
Most definitely. But for me, when I was playing, it was always the best coach, whether it was male or female. But a lot of females are starting to stand up. We had Juska Dihali coaching the Platinum Stars MDC team. We had Maud Khumalo, who was coaching a Castle League team. We had Tracy Pepper, who was coaching a team, I think, in the ABC Motsepe League. So our people, the women, are able and capable. It's the opportunities, but it's also more the commitment from the female coaches, because we have a lot of coaches with licenses. We have a lot of coaches with A licenses, with B licenses, but not many of them are active. And it's right when Dorette says they don't have the commitment. Besides having the commitment, the work ethic is very important. And a lot of them, unfortunately, also have families. And maybe that is the stumbling block for them being involved in coaching, because coaching is not just putting the whistle in your mouth. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah, Des, I'm glad that you said that, not all male coaches will abuse their players, because that's absolutely true. And women's sports have got a lot of male coaches to thank for where they currently are. And I think that'll be like that in the future. That's not to say we don't want to see more women's coaches. Des, I know that you were at the launch of the Women and Men Fighting Child Abuse. They launched an athletes program to get more involved in protecting children. Do you think that federation is doing enough to keep our young children safe?
Look, I think everyone is trying. I think, it's important. Sometimes people are afraid to come out. Sometimes they're not sure who to speak to. And I think that needs to maybe be better. Of having a person to speak to, because they're really not sure what's going to happen. It's almost like I say something, you say something, who we're going to believe type of thing. But I think WAMACA, I think, is an organization that have come out and have shown their support to, I've seen on social media as well, that there's been a few incidences where they've gone to support the individual. And there is an opportunity now and someone to speak to. And hopefully it can get better. But I think it starts with there being a list of who can coach and who cannot coach kids. I think that needs to be available to everyone, because you can go from a school where you dismissed without anything being said, with everything being swept under the carpet, and you can actually go to another school and coach young kids, and nobody knows what has happened. So, I mean, maybe that needs to be better, so that then it becomes almost a norm where people know that I cannot employ this individual to coach kids. I cannot employ that individual to coach kids. And maybe that should be better.
Yeah, I know Netball South Africa director are busy dealing with a allegation of a sex pest being allowed to coach, and that's something that NSA said that they are going to get back to the public on. They've just requested 21 days since the publication of a Sunday Times article. But in general, do you feel as if the Federation is doing enough to protect young players coming through?
I don't think we can do enough at all. Whatever we're trying to do, I don't think it's enough, because there's so many players out there. And like Des is saying, they need someone to talk to, and that is sometimes a huge problem, because they don't have families, parents to talk to, and their coach, male or female, they're everything. They will go to a netball training just to get rid of all the trouble at home and things like that. So they trust this person with everything. And most of the time, a coach is playing a huge role in a player's life, and it's not like they're saying always negative. We actually need to believe that there's a lot of positive. But yes, I think the biggest problem is having that person or system out there to talk to, because the person they trust with their lives, that's actually taking away a lot of pain. That is where they love being, is will be at the training. If things aren't right there, they will they won't turn their back on someone that's actually supporting them and that's there for them. So this is really becoming a huge problem, and I think Netball South Africa, with our sponsors, for really trying to give the opportunity to players to talk, that there's someone out there to talk to. You don't have to participate in circumstances like that. But I just think that the role coaches are playing is sometimes so huge that players will rather see it as a positive thing, just being out of their bad environment, there where someone cares, than just talking about it. And actually they will protect that person at the end of the day, and that makes it difficult to go against people that is against the law. And you won't get that players to always talk, and that's our biggest problem, because they trust that coach with everything inside of them. So it will make the federation's work really difficult if players don't come out and talk about what's happening with them. The federation can't do anything if players don't talk, and this will stay a huge problem, because you can't do anything if there's no evidence, like Des was saying, who's talking the truth and what is being said out there. And that's a huge problem for the federation, because if they don't have the support of the kids, the players that's involved, then they can't do anything. Your hands are cut.
Yeah, I think, though, that criminal activities will only thrive in the darkness. So the more that you shine light on speaking about situations like this, perhaps it will inspire confidence to be able to actually speak about some of these uncomfortable issues, and give players that may have been subjected to such things the confidence to actually come out and speak about it. Liesel Winvogel says, sorry I joined late, but I think same as with job recruitment, coaching should also be job recruitment, and coaches should have police clearances. Yeah, that's something that's incredibly important. And just building on what it is that we were saying, because Dorrit and Des, you're absolutely right. Coaches play such a huge role in young people's lives, because most people get involved in sport as an escape, because sport is fundamentally fun. That's why you go to partake, it's because you go to get away from the day at school, to get away from the books, to, actually to express yourself in a different way, in a physical way. Florence said a little early on, was a comment that I heard, or that I read, excuse me, having the right training is absolutely crucial. I just wonder, as much as the footballing and the netball landscape are very different from when you began coaching. There's the comment. Florence Molabecheng says, definitely agree with Coach Badenhorst. Having the right training is very, very crucial. I wonder, because of how the world has changed in your respective sports. If you could give one piece of advice that you wish you had gotten as a coach when you were starting out, what would it be, and what would it be that you would like to share, Des?
I think there's a couple of things. When we were playing, there was nothing like performance analysis. If you could go back and have a look at your footage to become a better player, I think that was one of the most important things. Also, when I was playing, they didn't go into so much detail. Now it's so much more detailed and specific, when you are busy. Everything you do is detailed and specific. Back then, we just played. We didn't go into much detail. We just played. I think the coach hardly went to watch the opposition. You would just go onto the field and play. And you never, ever had an opportunity to look at your own performances and to sit down with the coach and try and be better. So maybe those are maybe two of the things that I would have liked to have as a player. It would have made me definitely a better player. And obviously the honesty, the honesty right up front, talking about some coaches would tell you playing well, and behind your back, they would go and speak to other people and say you didn't do well. And I think my late father was one that criticized me left, right, and center. And I always wanted to be better, but he would go to friends and say, she actually played well today, but I didn't want to tell her that because I wanted to be better. So sometimes also criticism is good, but we have to be honest.
So the key piece of advice you would give to young coaches coming through is maintain honesty. Dorette, is there one piece of advice that you wish you had gotten that maybe would have made your journey in coaching a little bit easier?
Yeah, I want to say one thing. Coaching is for me not about me as a person, and the amount of sacrifice and commitment and planning that needs to go in there. Sometimes that is a big problem because coaches think, oh, it's easy to just become a coach. Like Des was saying a few years ago, when we were still playing, it was much easier to just go to training. You got on court and you just played. Now it's different. You can't expect players to become better if you don't really do skill development. And for that, you need planning. You need to be prepared to go to every training. It's taking a lot of time. That it's not just going to a training and just take the whistle and they just play anymore. Like she said, you're doing a lot of video analysis on your own players, but also analyzing the team, the opponents. So the amount of time that's going in, and I don't want to scare people off, but when you go into coaching, you need to know that you need to be to plan. You need to prepare. It's not just going out there and put players on court. I always tell my coaches, that is just managing a team, and that's not really coaching a team, because you want players to move from one level of skills to another level. And it's so important to help players that is late developers to get to that next level, because some ways you will get that player that never got real coaching, and you can make that player the best that she actually can be and play at a national level. So for me, coaching is not managing a team. It's really putting a hell of a lot of time and dedication into planning, preparing, and communication. So important. Like Des was saying, communicating with them, being honest. That communication is always very, very important between you and the players. And that changed from when we played, because that stage the coach was right and you did what the coach was saying. Now it changed, because now it's a two-way communication. You listen to players, players give advice, players will tell you, yes, we 100%, or coach, we're really tired, can we just have this afternoon off? And you need to listen to advice from players as well. So communication definitely also not only from your side as a coach, there's more than one involved in this coaching.
Yeah, communication is a two-way street, as the famous saying goes. So, Coach, you know that Coach Badenhorst, you know that honesty has been the buzzword for a happy environment, for the piece of advice that you wish you had received when you began coaching. So be honest with us. How many hours a day would you say you dedicate to your job, to coaching?
Oh, only the times I'm sleeping, I'm not thinking netball. I've done this past 2 weeks. I coached 11 hours a day, giving to little ones and coaches back. I coach every day of my life, but in between you need to, like they said, communicate with your players, doing admin, doing analysis, and all those type of things. So I don't think your head ever rests when it comes to netball. It's maybe that's the reason I'm not married, because it's just netball, and my mom and dad must stand by when it's all about the 4-leg kids, looking after them, and traveling everywhere. Because for me, it's also important to, if players can't get to me, I need to get to my players, and it's all a lot of time and sacrifice, and you sometimes don't sleep even because you think, what do you need to change? What do you need to do? Plan next? When will you get feedback from the top people to just go on to the next thing and the next thing? So constantly netball in my head, I can promise you.
Should we just replace football with in Dorette's answer, and that would be your answer, Des?
I absolutely agree with her. I remember one day the manager contacted me. She was in the US, and she texted and said, "Are you awake?" And I said, "Yes, I'm busy on my laptop." And she says, "But it's 2 a.m. I said, "I know." So our sport is not time bound. It's not time bound, because sometimes you will get up in the morning and maybe you'll do nothing until 10, 12 o'clock. Or sometimes you'll be busy in the morning, and I don't go to bed earlier than 12 o'clock at all, because I go to games, I get footage of games, I go through that games, I give feedback. Besides that, I'm always looking at new trends. I'm always looking at the opposition, always downloading games, having a look at the games, getting ready for future matches, etc. Going back to other matches and looking at things, and then going on to a chat with the coaches and say, "Did you see this game? Did you see what happened here?" Or like last night, I had a chat with the assistant coach about our previous game, and before we knew it, we were on the phone for 2 hours. So it's never ending. It's never ending, because you want to be the best, but you also want to do the best. And to be able to do that, you have to put in the work. You have to put in the work. I remember working with Coach Vera. When she went to sleep, we went to sleep. So there isn't a time limit, because you need to be on top of your game all the time, and also being involved and getting into contact with your staff that you have, to make sure that everything is on board. And when we plan a camp, it's already happening 3 weeks before the camp is planned. It doesn't happen the day before or the week before. And when the camp is over, there's reports to be done, etc. So before you know it, you're already busy with the next camp. So when I have a day off, or when I have me time, I switch my phone off, and I try to just relax and watch movies or read or just lie in bed.
Sure. Okay. Dorette gave a very good caveat. She did say her disclaimer was, "I don't want to scare anybody away," which is why I suppose she didn't quite give us the figure right up front. So I did mention how you guys' teams are currently doing. Dorette, you guys had well done on the Tri-Nations. And good to see a young Monique coming through. But it seems as if we just keep developing these world-class goal defenders.
Monique played for me when I was still the SA under 21 coach. It's a player that's not very loud on court, but just the actions and never give up. Wherever you play her, she always gives 100%. So without 9 players, actually 11, because I was not allowed to select from the baby Proteas under 21s. So it gave other players opportunity to get on court. Some people thought I'm a little bit too brave, brave. But yes, I thought they really did well. Just help us with the next level of players coming through and make sure that you do have depth in your country, because injury, there's the God attack of New Zealand now pregnant before Commonwealth, and all those type of things happens, and then you need someone in the place and just as good. So for me, it was just giving more players opportunity, and some just grab it with both hands, and it's great for a coach to see that.
Yeah, Monique Renica is a goal defense, and she won Player of the Series in the recent Tri-Nations series where South Africa participated with Uganda and Namibia. Des, I mentioned the 2 international friendlies. Next thing is AFCON qualification, and then with an eye on the FIFA Women's World Cup. And that's going to be taking place in 2023, and good for the continent because we don't only have 3 slots, but we're going to have 4 slots. So what is your vision for Banyana over the next couple of months?
We're actually going to have 5 slots available. There's an extra slot for that will be much more difficult because it's all the teams that fell out. So we were competing with a lot of countries, teams in Europe, etc., to get into that. I think the AFCON is going to be much more difficult than what people expect. It's not 12 countries. Countries like Ivory Coast, who went to the 2015 World Cup, Ghana, who did not make it, Mali, you have Cameroon, you have Nigeria, you have Morocco, you have a fantastic program at the moment, vying for 4 places. The qualifying draw is happening on Monday. So we're looking forward to that. And only then you can really plan. But I think our planning started a long time ago. COVID has come, and we had the COSAFA Cup where we did not have any players from playing abroad. 9 of the players that played in the 2019 COSAFA Cup were now playing abroad. So it was all practically a new squad, with only 7 players that had played. So that gave us an opportunity to make our core group bigger. We then had the training camp. The training camp we had because we knew that the games against Zambia and Botswana were happening, and we wanted to make sure that the local based players, that when they do come to that camp, that they're on par with the players coming from abroad. But in hindsight, it helped us because due to COVID, we were not allowed to, a lot of the invitations to our players abroad were declined due to the quarantine protocols, and only Tembi, Noko and Amanda came. And that gave another opportunity to this group of players to, consistently raise the level. So we're looking forward to getting ready for the qualifiers first, and then we'll take it from there. But we'll take it step by step. Each and every camp we go to, we look for improvement. We look to be better. We look at players improving as well. And that is the most important thing for us. Like we say, we trust the process, and we just have to go with the process. If the process starts well, then the end goal will be what we want.
Coach Dorette, I was interested to hear how you manage pressure because I think the senior women's netball team are in a very pressurized position at the moment. We're building up to being hosts of the next Netball World Cup, and there's huge expectations. And not only the fact that we're hosting it, but because of what you and the team were able to do at the 2019 World Cup in Liverpool, where the team missed out on a medal by 2 points after they lost 53-55 to Australia in that semi-final. So what is the process for you now? Because coaching is all about planning, and you've got this really big goal in 2023 when South Africa hosts the World Cup.
Yeah, because of COVID, we played the Africa teams, and we're lucky that Malawi and Uganda is ranked just behind us at 6 and 7. For us, it's really important to play the big guns as soon as possible, but not even the England-Jamaica games happened. So we are planning to, we already signed the contract to play against Jamaica in October. We both red countries at this stage, so we can still manage to participate and play in a test series against Jamaica. Trinidad and Tobago should also join us in that series. So then we also gotten confirmation of the Quad series that will happen in January again between us, Australia, New Zealand and England. But yeah, we don't know what COVID is going to give us, and it will have a huge impact on us because it's Commonwealth next year. So it's for us really important to start playing the big guns as well, because if you play against the best in the world, you start believing that you can also be the best. So for me, it's very important to play those top teams as soon as possible.
We've got 3 minutes remaining of this webinar, and I'm going to end it where we actually started off when I was reading those statistics from a study into the Title IX and what's happened in college sports in the United States. Just saying that a lot of women have taken up space as coaches, but there's still a lot more space for women to take up. That's just in an American context, but I know here in South Africa, and just hearing what you ladies have had to say, that that's exactly the same here. So we've spoken about the challenges. But if you have to encourage young women to take up the role of being a coach, what will you say to them? This is your plug for the other women coaches to actually take that role up and to take on that responsibility.
Yeah, and the satisfaction you get on just seeing how players perform from where they started, and you make that difference in their lives. I think that is the greatest thing for a coach, to see how they improve, and from nothing they become a Spa Protea player, and that is for me the most important thing that I want to tell coaches. It's go out there, you can make a huge difference in players' lives.
So sometimes, Valen, as coaches, we're afraid to take up that space because we don't think we're capable, or we don't think we're able. The opportunity is there for you. You know, you just need to grab that opportunity. And it's true what Dorette says, you know, it's not about, you know, when I was a club coach, we never won the league once when I was a club coach. But when I look back, so many players that played in the national team, that for me is satisfaction. Success is not just about winning trophies, but success is about seeing players go to the next level. Success is about seeing opportunities created. That is also what success is all about. So for coaches out there, do not be afraid to take up the space, but make sure that you know your craft, and make sure that you keep upskilling yourself and grab the opportunity.
Yeah, the measure of success is not only in that full-time result. Thank you to the both of you. All the best of luck with the next couple of months, and with the massive plans that both of you have for the national women's football team, in your case, Des, and the national women's netball team, in your case, Dorette.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, I do hope that you've enjoyed our latest in the series of South African and Women's Sport Foundation webinars. Today was all focused on women's coaching and women coaches coaching national women's teams. It's been great being your moderator today. I've really enjoyed it, and thanks so much to the two guests today, as well as those that got involved in the conversation. So thanks to Desiree Ellis, as well as Dorette Badenhorst, and to those behind the scenes that have put it together. Have a fabulous weekend. Goodbye.